What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the JT Sports Podcast. I'm your host, JT. On this episode, I want to discuss why the quarterback class for the upcoming 2025 NFL Draft scares the absolute hell out of me. Let's dive into it. We are officially in draft season. For those of you guys who are fans of teams who are no longer able to make it to the playoffs, you root for the Giants, the Raiders, you're excited because if you can draft the right quarterback next year, around this same time next season, that quarterback could be the reason why you end up being in the playoffs, similar to Jaden Daniels with the Washington Commanders. Remember, they were struggling last year under Ron Rivera. They fired him. They bring in a new regime. They draft Jaden Daniels second overall, and voila, they find themselves right in the thick of the playoff race. But for the quarterback class this year, though, I'm absolutely scared because I feel this is going to be one of the worst quarterback classes that we have seen in recent memory. And there are only three guys that I feel are worth drafting in the first round, those being Shedeur, Cam Ward, and Drew Allar. And the reasoning for why I would take these three quarterbacks in the first round individually, let's start off with Shedeur Sanders. The floor is already high. Even if Shedeur Sanders isn't that good, I still think that you can get a serviceable starter for at least 10 years. Now, the ceiling isn't that high. Okay, so with Shedeur, I would view him as the safest quarterback prospect in this draft because he's already coming from a pro-style offense somewhat with Pat Shurmur, and he's already battle tested. He played with a bad offensive line. And the biggest reason why a lot of these collegiate quarterbacks struggle making the transition from college to NFL is that they get so used to playing behind elite offensive lines that once you get into the NFL, your play starts to go down because you have to get used to playing from within a muddy pocket. And most of the times, nobody really throws out of a clean pocket the majority of the time. So you have to be able to be efficient throwing the ball under pressure. And with Shedeur Sanders playing behind offensive lines that have been some of the worst in college football, he should be able to handle maybe not getting the best protection at the next level. He also is really accurate, makes good decisions with the football. He's really good going through his progressions. Yeah, the character concerns may be off-putting to some people. He's not for everybody. But the floor is high enough that if you draft him, you know that he's not going to flame out. Now, the ceiling is that if everything works out for Shedeur, you're looking at probably Joe Burrow 2.0 because he's really prolific at identifying what opposing defenses are running, checking into the right plays, making sure that the offensive line has the right pass protection set up. So I believe Shedeur's the safest quarterback that you could draft in next year's draft. Now, Cam Ward and Drew Allar are the next two quarterbacks that I feel are worth first-round picks. And the reason why I mention them both is because they kind of are similar to me. They are ultimate wild cards because you see guys who can make a lot of big-time throws off script from different body angles. They also have really good arms as well, and they got really good athleticism. Drew Allar is a really underrated athlete. Not Josh Allen-like, but he has enough athleticism that you have to account for it. And Cam Ward, he may be a better athlete than what we give him credit for. Although he's a pretty good runner, I don't really think we've seen the full capabilities of what Cam Ward could be just with his dual threat ability, because most of the times he was throwing the football at Miami, there wasn't really a lot of times outside of a few games, like, for example, when he played against Cal, that you really saw his athleticism on full display. He could be similar to a C.J. Stroud in that capacity. Not saying that he is C.J. Stroud, but remember, when C.J. Stroud was at Ohio State, the biggest concern about him was his athleticism. Did he have enough speed to evade pass rushers? Could he pick up yards with his legs? Would he be a willing runner? And then he gets to the NFL and he's a much better athlete than what we expected. Same thing could be said for Cam Ward. Now, what makes these quarterbacks a little bit iffy to draft is that unlike Shedeur Sanders, the floor for both Drew Allar and Cam Ward is incredibly low. If these guys don't work out, within 2 to 3 years, they could find themselves being career backups or possibly out of the league because the footwork is a little bit sloppy. The mechanics for both of these guys needs a lot of work, and they probably are not meant to start day one. They're probably are guys that you want to sit for the first couple of weeks, maybe a year, if you have the luxury of getting a pretty good bridge quarterback to mentor them, like the Seattle Seahawks already have with a Geno Smith, or the Jets with a Tyrod Taylor. And the ceiling for Cam Ward and Drew Allar, on the other hand, is incredibly high, higher than Shedeur's ceiling, just because they are more athletically gifted than what Sanders is. They have stronger arms. They are better athletes, especially Cam Ward. I think that Cam Ward, if everything goes right, you're looking at somebody that potentially could be a top 5 quarterback in this league. Now, outside of Shedeur Sanders, Cam Ward, and Drew Allar, I don't think there's any other quarterback in this class that is worth drafting in the first round, unless if you're a general manager, you want to lose your job. Because Jalen Milroe, I still don't understand how anybody can view him as a first-round pick after how he has played after the first 4 games of this season. He's a really erratic passer. Really, he's not a good passer at all. He's more accurate throwing the deep ball than he is throwing anything else, and that in itself is a red flag. Yeah, throwing the deep ball of accuracy is impressive, but the key to being a good quarterback in the NFL is that you have to be accurate in the short, intermediate ranges of the field, and we don't really see a lot of explosive passing plays downfield like that this season anyway, because a lot of teams are playing too high coverages where they want to eliminate the deep passes. So therefore, you have to be able to lead the offense methodically downfield, taking what the defense gives you, being able to hit a wide receiver on a wide open 5-yard slant, a 10-yard out. And you got to be able to play well, not just within the structure of offense, but you have to be good at working the quick passing game. And that's something that Jalen Milroe is not that good at doing. Now, understand the appeal of drafting Jalen Milroe high in the first round. You're thinking about the upside. You're thinking about, if he works out, what are we getting? Could we be seeing the next 2.0 of Lamar Jackson? I don't think so. I see Jalen Milroe being a lot closer as a prospect to what Malik Willis was. Because remember, Malik Willis was somebody that everybody had these Lamar Jackson comparisons for. And then the drive rolls around and he comes nowhere close to making it to the first round. And then he gets to Tennessee, gets a few opportunities to start, and you can see why teams weren't willing to invest the first-round pick in him, because he just doesn't have the ability to be a consistent passer at this level. When you draft somebody like Malik Willis, you have to completely alter your offense around him and pretty much build your offense around his running ability. So if you draft Jalen Milroe, you're saying that, okay, we feel that we can utilize his unique athleticism, make him a run-first quarterback for his first 2 years in the league while we develop him as a passer in the background. But the thing is, I don't see Jalen Milroe ever developing as a good enough passer to win you games consistently at this level. If you can't work the quick game in college, how can you be trusted to be able to work the quick game at the next level when the field is more condensed, it's more faster? Jalen Milroe, to me, is just not a quarterback. To me, I would view him more as a Taysom Hill kind of player. With his unique athleticism, you can move him all around the offense. Everybody thinks that if you sit a quarterback, they magically just become good. That's not the case. Look what happened with Trey Lance in the 49ers. He went to the best situation that any rookie quarterback could go to. You get coached by one of the greatest offensive minds that we've seen in the last decade in Kyle Shanahan. You have all this talent already around you, good receivers, a great run game, a good offensive line, and yet he still wasn't able to pan out. Some of these guys just aren't quarterback material at the next level. Not everybody can be developed. And once you get past Jalen Milroe, okay, the only thing that can sell you on drafting Jalen Milroe in the first round is his potential. But when it comes to Quinn Ewers and Carson Beck, I don't see a first round argument to be had with any of those guys, especially Carson Beck. With how he has played these last 3 months, there's no way in hell any general manager should touch Carson Beck. Because Carson Beck, to me, he's one of those guys that you take a flyer on the second day of the draft or day 3 in the draft, like the Saints did with Spencer Rattler. Maybe you have somebody that if he sits for a year or two, he can turn into a solid backup and then potentially be a decent starter for you. But with how bad his decision making has been, the fact that he doesn't look comfortable under pressure really scares me. And I have the same problems with Quinn Ewers like I do with Carson Beck. When Quinn Ewers is operating out of a clean pocket, he's pretty good. But when the pocket gets muddy and teams like to send extra guys at Quinn Ewers, like how Georgia did the 2 times they played in the SEC championship and during the regular season, you see a quarterback that just sees ghost out there. Anytime the game is on the line, Quinn Ewers always folds. He is a really streaky passer. He's somebody that you have to script your first 20 plays to get him in rhythm, because if you can't get him hot early, he's not going to have a good game. And he kind of has put limitations on how far Texas can go as far as being a national champion, because the offense that Sark has built around him has kind of been complementary to his skill set. You know, he does have a decent arm. He does do a really good job at being able to throw the ball all platform from different arm angles, but the accuracy and the consistency with the decision making, the ability to play from within a muddy pocket just is not there that would make me comfortable enough of wanting to spend the first round pick on Quinn Ewers. Certain quarterbacks like Jalen Milroe, if you're selling me on athleticism, you're selling me on the arm strength, and you're selling me on potential, okay, I can somewhat understand you drafting him in the first round, although I wouldn't agree with it. But somebody like Quinn Ewers, where the athleticism isn't there, you don't have the ability to avoid the rush, you don't have the ability to really be that big of a threat with your legs, and plus, just your physical limitations in itself doesn't really make you worth the flyer of being drafted in the first round. And the same thing can be said with Carson Beck, although I do believe that if I had to pick between Quinn Ewers and Carson Beck, I would go with Carson Beck, just because Carson Beck looks like one of those guys that he could be a decent backup for you, but potentially he has the upside of maybe being a solid starter for you if he goes to an ideal situation with a head coach that really knows what he's doing. Like if Carson Beck got drafted by the Rams and Sean McVay, I think he could be solid, because he does have the ability to go through progressions. He does have the ability when he's playing his best football. He looks like a really decent quarterback. But Quinn Ewers, I just feel he's been one of those quarterbacks that has yet to live up to all of the high expectations that he had coming out of high school. Because remember, or if you don't follow high school recruiting like that, Quinn Ewers was the 5th highest rated quarterback in recruiting history, only behind Vince Young, Justin Fields, Trevor Lawrence, and a few other guys. And I haven't really seen him look like that kind of OP player that you expect from somebody who has all of this high praise coming out of high school. So if you are a fan of a team that desperately needs to draft a quarterback in next year's draft, the only 3 guys that I will feel comfortable with are Drew Allar, Cam Ward, and Shedeur Sanders. Outside of that, I wouldn't touch any other quarterback until round 3 or 4, because I mean, right now, this year's quarterback class just looks like a crapshoot to me. But leave your thoughts on how you feel about the 2025 quarterback class down in the comment section down below. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, tap that bell icon so you don't miss when we drop new content and when we go live. Remember that we're not just a YouTube channel, we are a podcast. You can find this episode and all of our other ones on Apple, Spotify, Amazon. Links are down in the description down below. Give us a 5-star review if you enjoy, and I will see you guys shortly with another episode.